Hello all and welcome to a review of the Sniper Dropping Kit by Mancraft of Poland. In this video I'll be reviewing, installing and chronoing a Mancraft SDiK kit built into a VSR-10. First, the reasons. Why would you want to switch from spring to gas? Recently I purchased a VSR-10 which had been upgraded by the previous owner to shoot around 460 FPS. Stock, a VSR-10 will shoot around 280. However, I wanted to push this to a consistent 500 as that is my field's limit. Still, you're asking, why the change? Personally, I found the long travel bolt pull on the VSR-10 difficult, unrealistic and very tiring after a single mag, especially if you're trying for rapid fire. I did like, however, its shot-to-shot consistency. At this point, you would probably point out that there are green gas-powered sniper rifles or conversion cylinders for the VSR-10, such as this one from King Arms Airsoft. However, I find green gas FPS can vary wildly for a country like the UK, and the mags hold few BBs and the cost of each mag is well over £30 at most airsoft stores. So on research I stumbled upon a Polish company called Mancraft who manufacture dropping kits for a variety of sniper rifles. In this video we'll be using the VSR-10 Pro Sniper, but the kit also works with the G-Spec version 2 and any other VSR-10 compatible rifles. Just be sure to select the right version if you have a 45° or a 0° trigger installed in your rifle. So now you're interested in purchasing a sniper dropping kit and its spare parts. Unfortunately they are only available from Mancraft in Poland and you can only get them from their website. They deliver internationally and by default all prices are in Polish zloty, though there is a converter available for dollars and United Kingdom pounds. Parts of the website are still in Polish however, so you may need to use a language translator. I would recommend that you purchase the following items from them all in one go in order to keep delivery costs down. And you will need the following: the sniper dropping kit for your rifle, in this case a VSR-10 with a 0 trigger, the regulator, a CO2 adapter if you intend to run it on CO2, and spare rubber O-rings for the regulator, the sniper dropping kit and a CO2 adapter. These are not necessary but are nice to have just in case. All in all, you're looking to spend for about £150 including postage and packaging. So, when I received my SDiK kit, it came in the following: one medium and two small white boxes with a Mancraft logo stuck on the front. On opening the medium sized box first, we find the main SDiK kit components. We have the spring, the small brass tube, the spare rubber O-rings I added to the order, the tubing already attached to the SDiK kit cylinder, and the SDiK cylinder itself. Before we install the SDiK kit, we need to do some disassembly to it. First, remove the supplied cylinder head, then remove the rear of the SDiK, revealing a thin brass needle. Take care because this needle is very fragile and it has a small hole in it about a third of the way up. This is intentional. Before we get to work we need tools, namely a crosshead screwdriver, a 3mm hex key, a 2.5mm hex key, a 2mm hex key. Personally I use a magnetic bits tray and a pair of pliers. So, now that we have all the parts required, we start by disassembling the rifle first. Start by removing any accessories to your rifle such as scopes and cheek rests to prevent obstruction and damage. Turning the rifle so that the underside faces you, remove the screws using a 2.5mm hex key and a crosshead screwdriver as shown. With the screws removed, simply lift the barrel, bolt and trigger assembly from the rifle stock and place the stock in a safe location. Remove the barrel from the bolt and trigger assembly by using a crosshead screwdriver and removing the small screw as shown. Then turn the barrel in an anti-clockwise direction to simply screw it off and place the barrel somewhere safe as well. You should now be left with the bolt and trigger assembly. Remove the trigger assembly from the bolt assembly. The method of removal may be different if you have a stock or third-party trigger assembly installed. Once you have removed the trigger assembly, pull out the steel retaining rod from the bolt assembly and then slide the cylinder out and place in the bolt carrier somewhere safe. This next part you may skip if you are using the original cylinder. as the SDiK kit only works with the original cylinder. If you have a third party one, you must now remove the bolt handle by unscrewing the screw on the rear of it using a 3mm hex key, being cautious to remove it slowly as there is a small spring mounted nub hidden underneath the first part. Then remove the bolt handle completely. Now that you have the cylinder bare, start by removing the cylinder head, then the piston, spring and spring guide completely. Now if you're wondering why I went through all the trouble of removing the bolt handle, this cylinder was bought from Airsoft Sniper UK, who in their wisdom decided to make the thread different from Tokyo Marui's original cylinder. This means I've had to ditch their cylinder and use the original one from Tokyo Marui, which the SDiK kit's cylinder head fits. So, with the bolt handle already fitted, grab the following from the SDiK kit: the spring, the brass tube and the SDiK cylinder and the actual part that goes inside it, as well as the bolt carrier. First, slide the cylinder into the bolt carrier and levering it down so it locks in place. Now for a bit of a tricky part. Thread the SDiK needle only down the cylinder with the tubing as well, through a hole at the bottom of the cylinder, then pull the rest of the tube through the cylinder until only part of the brass needle is inside it. Lube the needle and then, using it as an improvised spring guide, put the spring in place, followed by a pre-lubed SDiK cylinder. Push this as far as it can go, placing the SDiK cylinder head in place. You can use pliers to tighten it, however I found mine sufficiently tightened by hand alone. Using the brass tube, thread this over the SDiK's plastic cylinder all the way to the bolt and place it inside the cylinder. This brass tube now takes place of the steel pin from before. Now grab your trigger assembly, locate the hole the steel pin used to go through, and as pointed out, start by threading the plastic tube through this, including the brass tube, then secure the trigger assembly in place. Reinstall your barrel, not forgetting the barrel screw, and you should be left with the above assembly. Now, how you route your SDiK's tube through the rifle will vary from person to person depending on your preference. I had a Condor cheek rest where I found I could conceal the regulator inside it. With that, I threaded the tube through a small hole just behind the trigger handle in the stock, and then I drilled a hole into the stock and threaded the tube through that. With that, the installation is almost ready. We now move on to the regulator and the CO2 adapter. First, on the regulator, ensure that the screw on top is fully unwound. Place a CO2 bulb into the CO2 tube and screw this and the regulator tightly together to puncture the CO2 bulb and form a tight seal. Then hook up the SDiK's plastic tube to the regulator using the push fittings, and then tighten the screw on top of the regulator to gas up the system at around 8 bars. I found around 500 FPS. Your rifle is now ready to fire on CO2. So, how does it perform? First, a chrono test. On about 8 bar of pressure using 0.2 gram ASG Blaster BBs, you can see that the FPS is very stable, often shooting at the same speed in a row with acceptable deviations. So you're probably wondering now how many shots I get out of one CO2 bolt. Firing 0.2 gram BBs at 500 FPS, I find I get around 100 shots using just one bolt, and I'd probably get over a few hundreds if I use a HPA bottle instead, which this kit is compatible to use with. In terms of ease of pull and rate of fire, we can see from this clip how easy it is to fire quickly and effortlessly. In this video I'll be calling out the FPS speed. Bear in mind I have the regulator set at a higher pressure than normal, so most speeds will be around a 521 to 528 FPS with an average of 526. Again, I'm using 0.2 gram ASG Blaster BBs. Third time, as quick as you can. 528, 529, 527, 526, 523, 522, 528, 524, 521, 526, 525, 526, 525, 526, 525. So, after all this, are there any negatives? Well, yes, there are a few. If you're not comfortable with disassembling your rifle, then I suggest you let someone else do it who is experienced in airsoft teching for you. I've also found the regulator suffers from what I call FPS creep, in that you find a sweet spot's pressure on the regulator, and as you keep shooting, the FPS creeps up and up by itself without adjusting anything. I found this was probably on a new regulator, and it's since settled to stable FPSs. Furthermore, I would have preferred a much more smoothly moving regulator needle as opposed to the one that you can see in the video, which jumps up as I turn the adjustment screw. I also found the CO2 adapter to be very particular about how the O-ring inside it is installed. If you do not get it right the first time around, the adapter will leak CO2 and wasting a bulb, which makes battlefield reloads of the bulb difficult, as you need to be extremely careful as to how that O-ring is fitted. Finally, I would like to see Mancraft redesign the cylinder head with screw holes on top or notches on the side to help pliers grip the head in place to tighten it, as currently there is nothing in place, and for many pliers you'll end up chipping the head or leaving marks on the side of it. So, to summarise, the Mancraft Sniper drop-in kit is a relatively simple kit to convert your spring rifle to a gas rifle for a reasonable price. They appear to have used quality materials in order to construct the system, and it's pretty reliable in making the bolt pull easier as well as shortening the pull length. Whilst I'm aware there are other gas systems available, they are only for green gas, whereas this system has the flexibility of using CO2 or high pressure air tank, which I plan to do in the future. Furthermore, with this system you can probably push the FPS to all the way to over 800 FPS if you wanted to. However, it will come at a cost of shots per bolt. As stated, I get about 100 shots of about 500 FPS on 2 gram to 0.2 gram BBs. However, the adapter has issues with the O-ring being in the exact place, which means wasting bulbs will be a common occurrence unless you take your time to reseat the O-ring each time you change bulbs. I've yet to use it with a high pressure air tank to see if it's any better. So guys, again, thank you for watching this video. Like it if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it. If you have any questions, queries or comments, please use the comment section down below and I'll try my best to answer them. So, until the next video, thanks again for watching.